Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Boundary. My name's Josh. It's a pleasure to have you. I've got my partner Nick with me. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself, Josh?
Yeah, not too bad considering some certain circumstances during the week. Unfortunately, we're meant to have Paige Cardona on this week, but due to unfortunate circumstances, she won't be on. She will join us next week. We're looking forward to that. She knows a heap about Supercoach and everything to do with Collingwood, so we're looking forward to having her next week. Nick, round 18, it delivered plenty and delivered a lot of misconjecture in round 18. What are your thoughts on it?
Certainly did. There was a lot of big results and a lot of almost season-defining results. You know, we had Carlton with a big win over Gold Coast, Port Adelaide keeping their spot in the 8 over Brisbane, and some big blowouts as well. So a great round of footy overall.
It was, and there were a few disappointing games in there that didn't quite live up to their hype, but we'll get on to them shortly. Nick, how'd you tip, mate?
8 out of 9 this week, so I was really happy with that, and improved my lead in the tipping leaderboard. So I was very happy. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was the same. I got 8 out of 9 as well. I flirted with tipping with the Western Bulldogs, but just couldn't get over the line. And unfortunately, I still remain equal top and couldn't get that one ahead. What surprised you in round 18, Nick?
I was very surprised that the Essendon Hawthorn game wasn't a lot closer than it was. We'll touch on that in a minute. I was also surprised that the Fremantle Adelaide game, it was sort of maybe a bit lackluster. Sort of expected a more of a high scoring shootout than that one. So yeah, that's about it. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was really surprised in the North Melbourne game, I feel. It just, at half time, you thought, gee, Melbourne are going to have a great crack here. And I turned on at full time, and North Melbourne had kicked 118 to 8 points after half time. So it was a demolition and certainly didn't do any favours to Neil Craig and his aspirations to be the Melbourne coach at in season 2014. I also like the Western Bulldogs game. They've been really good the last month and have a lot to look forward to. Luke Dalhouse played his best game for the year. Rob Murphy also was very, very good. They got a lot to be excited down there at the Doggies. They need a big, powerful key forward, I feel, and probably another one or two key defenders. And I think they're on their way. They've got a very good young midfield. Tom Liberatore was very good again. Mitch Wallace has looked like he's found a new role. And I just think they're heading in the right direction under Brendan McCartney.
Yeah, it really was a game where the Western Bulldogs sort of stood up and announced themselves that they're definitely not the pushovers that many people thought they would be at the start of the season.
That's a
Going into the
that,
game, seeing West Coast outs, he sort of thought, oh, should I tip the Bulldogs? But I couldn't do it. You know, I didn't have any confidence tipping the Bulldogs. But after that performance on Sunday, it was, my mind's changed.
yeah, absolutely. And as I said, they've got a lot to look forward to, and even GWS against the Collingwood Magpies on Saturday afternoon, I think it was, and they've got a lot to look forward to as well. And if they get Tom Boyd to their side, or even James Aish or Matthew Scharenberg, I think his name is, they get those boys to the club, then they're going to be really exciting in the future as well. Nick, Friday night was a very disappointing night, especially from a Bombers perspective. Hawthorn were just freakishly good.
They certainly were. Lance Franklin and Joe Ruffhead were both at their damaging best, and when those two are on that kind of form, you just don't stand much of a chance.
You don't. No, I'm staggered on how Essendon can stop Lance Franklin at the moment. He's destroyed us the last 4 or 5 years really. His lowest goal scoring tally against us is 3 goals. So I was a little disappointed. I didn't think Essendon did much wrong. They probably gave Hawthorn a bit too much space and didn't close them down very well. Sam Mitchell had his own football on Friday night. And I think it showed with Hawthorn that you don't need to be a quick side if you're effective. And Hawthorn's obviously well touted as the one of the most effective sides in the competition. And you give them space, they're just going to chop you up.
I was certainly very surprised. Hawthorn kicked 22 goals in a first, second on the ladder. Looking at the final score from that game, if you had told me at the start of the game Essendon had kicked 13-9-87, I would have thought certainly a close game. I was very, very surprised that Hawthorn was able to push away by such a margin.
Absolutely. And you look at the difference in the scoreline, and it's about 8 or 9 goals. And that man again, Buddy Franklin, kicking 8 himself, it really hurts. And yeah, just one more week out wouldn't have wouldn't have done him any harm. And but it was great. It was great to see the best on show, and that's why you go to the footy. You don't just go to the footy to watch your own side. You go there to watch the best in the business. And I must say, even though I was disappointed leaving the ground on Friday night, I left the ground feeling pretty good because I saw something quite special that you don't see very often these days with Buddy kicking 8 goals. Now moving on to Collingwood and their last few weeks, which has been very underwhelming. It's been well known around the AFL world that some of their players look maybe a tad lazy, running very hard forward, but not as hard defensively. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they certainly do have the attacking midfield for many clubs to be envious of. With your Pendlebury's, your Swans, Beams, of course, just coming back into the side. But sometimes you do get that feeling that they don't work as well as a defensive unit going back with the ball.
Absolutely, and when you look at their injury list, I got it in front of me here. Darren Jolly's missed the last couple of weeks with a knee injury. Dale Thomas has missed the most of the season. Clinton Young also most of the season. He played those 2 games before doing his hamstring. And Alan Tuvey as well. You throw in only Luke Ball, Paul Seedsman, who missed last week as well. But those first names I mentioned have missed a vital part of the year. I feel Darren Jolly's probably the most important because you throw Jared Witts, Brodie Grundy, and there's another ruckman I'm forgetting. I can't remember his name. I apologise. But you throw those 2 young guys in, and I actually read a stat during the week that they're the youngest, most inexperienced ruck duo to ever play together in the history of the game at one time. So I know you got to play them, and probably against GWS is the right time, and that makes it more important for Jolly to get back in the side, especially with finals looming and a very tough month ahead leading into the finals. They've got Essendon this week. They've got Sydney, Hawthorn, West Coast, and North Melbourne in the final month. If they can get through at least 3 or 4 of them, win 3 or 4 of them, they can become a real threat in the finals. And I know a lot of people are writing them off at this stage, but I think finals experience is very, very valuable when it comes to September and coming up against the big clubs.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be shocked if the Pies came out and they really found some form and beat 2 or 3 of those big clubs we just mentioned.
Absolutely, Nick, and they've already beaten Geelong this year, and have yet to play Sydney. So, sorry, they have played Sydney once and got towed up at the MCG, but their record at ANZ Stadium, where they play in a couple of weeks, is very, very good.
Everyone's sort of already written them off against Hawthorn. And as I said before, I wouldn't be shocked if they came out and won that game. And I read quite a few Herald Sun articles during the week where they're just sort of assuming that Hawthorn has that game won because they've got such a good record against them, and the Pies could really give them a scare and even win that.
Absolutely, and you get Dale Thomas back, who's aiming for not this week but next week to return. He's in full training this week, so he's aiming for next week, whether he comes through the VFL or straight back in the AFL. You get a couple of games into him. He's such a talented footballer. He can come into a final side and have an impact.
And a lot of people say, outside the top 4, you've got no chance. But Collingwood's the kind of team that I could really see coming from 5th or 6th position with a home final against a Richmond or Port Adelaide, and getting to a prelim, maybe even a grand final. I guess time will tell if that happens.
Absolutely, and history shows that you can win a flag from 8th position. Adelaide in 97-98, I'm fairly sure, won from 8th position. So it can be done. And as I said, come finals, it's a whole different ball game. If you're in the finals, you're in to win it, and it goes up a notch. So if they can get some of the injured stars back, I don't think we should be writing them off at all. They're a very dangerous side. Now moving on to the Sydney Swans and their midfield, it is absolutely scary, Nick. Their midfield depth is obviously the best in the competition, and they just keep getting stronger and stronger.
certainly is. We were talking about Collingwood's midfield, but Sydney is just another level. You've got Hanbury, Jack, Mitchell, Kennedy, Parker, O'Keefe, to name a few, and it's incredible.
Absolutely. You throw Jude Bolton in there as well, who can run through the midfield, not as much as what he used to. And then you got the two big guys in Shane Mumford and Mike Pike, who just throw their big bodies around, and when they hit a contest, they physically hurt the opposition because of their massive bodies. And they're good on the ground, they're good in the air. So that's a vital part in the Sydney side, their midfield, their ruck stocks. And they've got a lot of players to come back in as well who are crucial players to their structure.
How'd you rate their performance on Sunday against Richmond, Josh?
I think it was one of their best of the season, to be honest. I thought they were challenged by Richmond early, and they just went bang, 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 kicked away, and stamped their authority on the game, and ended up winning by about that 47 margin you picked last week, mate. So I'll
Yeah,
give you credit. I'll give you credit for that.
I was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I heard you were a bit smug about it. But no, they were very good, and certainly taught Richmond a lesson on where they need to be if Richmond are to be a contender.
It's a scary prospect coming into finals.
Now, moving on to our favourite segment of the podcast, it's the toast and roast. Nick, you don't have a roast for us this week, but you've got two toasts for us. What are they?
Yeah, I know you've got something you'd like to talk about, so I'm going to be quick. My first toast this week is my boys, the Geelong Cats. They ran out the game. It was their first 100-point win since the start of 2012. We've had a lot of trouble this season, with teams coming back and really getting them back into the game. So it was really good to see them, finish and kill her off and not let them get a sniff. My second roast from the same game is the two teams coming together for the photo at the end. Great show of respect for Casey Tatungi, as you all know, the recent quadriplegic. So that was really good to see. How about yourself, Josh?
All right, my toast is going to Daniel Jackson from Richmond. I'm going to be very quick here because I want to get on to my roast. He signed a new 2-year deal at the club yesterday. He is having his best year of his career and would certainly be up there in the best and fairest along with Dustin Martin and Brett Delidio at the club at the end of the year. Now my roast is the Asada investigation. Not so much because it's against my club. I'm happy for us to, I won't be happy, but I'm happy for us to be found guilty or not guilty, whatever it is. This must end now. It must end now because people are talking about doing suicide. Surely that is far enough. If people are talking about doing suicide, this must end now. It is getting far too serious, and it's time the findings are put in the hands of the AFL, in the hands of Essendon, and made public because this is getting far too serious. There are people who are getting very, very sick and considering suicide, and it must stop now.
Well said, Josh. Now, moving on to the rising star for this week. What do you got for us, Josh?
Marley Williams from Collingwood is the round 18 NAB Rising Star. His game for the weekend looked like this. It had 16 touches at 75% efficiency. He had 10 running bounces, 5 inside 50s, and 1 goal assist. His season averages, he's averaging just under 16 possessions a game, 4 marks, 3.2 tackles, and he's having a terrific season as a small defender. He's kind of filled that role that Alan Tuvey has left after doing his knee on Anzac Day against the Bombers. He's certainly got his work cut out for him for the rest of the season with a massive 5 weeks ahead, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes against the big clubs. Now we move on to a massive round ahead of us, which starts tonight at Etihad Stadium. It's round 19. It's North Melbourne versus Geelong. For North Melbourne, in comes Ben Jacobs and Luke Delaney. Out goes Nathan Grimer and their skipper Andrew Swallow with an Achilles.
And for the Cats, in comes Josh Hunt, Trent West, Jimmy Bartell and Mark Blitzarves, and out goes James Podsiadly, who is suspended, Mitch Brown omitted, Dawson Simpson with a knee injury, and George Holland-Smith, who has also been omitted.
Interesting game, this one, Nick. The last 2 times the Kangaroos have taken it up to you. What are your thoughts ahead of this game?
Yeah, they certainly have. Earlier this year, round 2, I believe it was, we'd just come off a win against the Hawks. Came into the Kangaroos game and I was fairly confident, but the Kangaroos, they really gave us a shock. I think they were something like 40 points up at one stage. They run and spread and, they run and carry off half back really hurt us, and it's going to be a massive challenge tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really impressed. I know they only played North Melbourne last. They only played Melbourne. I'm sorry, last week, but they still got the job done quite convincingly, and they may be a bit of flat track bullies, but they still got the job done pretty well, and I'm just interested to see how they go this week without this. Well, for the rest of the season and most of next year without their skipper Andrew Swallow. He's very underrated in terms of his contested ball work. His leadership is very underrated as well. I'm just wondering who's gonna step up in his role. Ben Cunnington's had a very good season, as has Ryan Bastanak. I've been really impressed with his last month or so. He's found the ball really well, used it well. He kicked 4 goals last week as well. So it'll be interesting to see who steps up in his absence.
Yeah, it certainly is a big loss of North Melbourne and a big help to Geelong going a fair way to them winning this game. Last time these two teams played, Bastanak absolutely killed us, and I really thought he was going to be the match winner for them. And it was a lucky umpiring decision in the last minute. That's the only reason Geelong actually got over the line with Jimmy Bartel kicking a goal with 30 seconds to go. So it's these teams. North Melbourne matches up really well against Geelong. It's just one of those teams that even though North Melbourne are sort of a bottom eight side, a bottom 10 side, Geelong really struggle against.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly before we move on to our tips, how much of a loss is James Podsiadly? He's been very good the last month.
He certainly has been. He sort of played 50% forward, 50% back this year. Bit of a swingman. It's always going to be that way in the later stages of his career with Josh Walker, Nathan Vardy, and a lot of other tall forwards like that, young tall forwards coming into the side. He really needed to add another string to his bow, and he certainly has done this season. That mark last week was absolutely brilliant, which was an exciting aspect of his game, which we're going to really miss.
Absolutely. Who are you tipping, mate? Are you going with your Cats?
I certainly am going with the Cats. They'll be too strong this week. North Melbourne will challenge them for most of the game, but I think the Cats will run out with probably 34 points, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might be a little bit closer than that. I think North Melbourne will galvanise themselves, losing their skipper, and it'll force those younger players to step up. I'll still be tipping Geelong, but only by about 15 points. And now we move on to the big blockbuster at Skoda Stadium. It's the GWS Giants versus the Demons. It's one that could go either way. For the Giants, in comes Stephen Caniglio and Lockie Whitfield. Out goes Sam Daly, who's been omitted, and Will Hoskin-Elliott, who was left with that concussion last week.
And for the mighty Melbourne Football Club, in comes Colin Garland, Jake Spencer, and Dean Turlich, who's been absolutely brilliant this year. And out goes James Frawley with a hamstring injury, Chris Dawes with a calf, and Sam Blease, who's been omitted.
I can't wait for this one, Nick. There's going to be a bumper crowd. It's the most anticipated game of the year. I'm clearly taking a bit of P1 double five there. I don't know what to make of this game, to be honest, mate. The GWS Giants, they were very good last week against the Pies. They took it up to them for 3 quarters. Uh, I I can't fathom to put how good Jeremy Cameron is going to be. He's kicked 79 goals in his 32 games. And I'll just throw some names at you. Doug Wade, Gary Ablett Sr., Jason Dunstall, and Tony Lockett. They are the only four players who have more goals than Jeremy Cameron at the same amount of games played. So that's a fair stat right there, and a credit to young Jeremy Cameron. Nick, what are your thoughts on this game, mate?
Well, you sent me a message during the week with the record lowest crowd in history, implying that this one might be lower. I think it possibly could be. Certainly could go either way. I really don't know who to tip. I can't tip either team with confidence. One of the positives that you'll see in this game is Jeremy Cameron, who was absolutely brilliant last week, as you mentioned. And with Frawley out with a hamstring injury for Melbourne, he could really have a big impact on this game.
I think for Melbourne, it's a game that they simply must win. They cannot afford to drop this game. They need to give their fans some kind of hope heading into next year. I'm fairly sure that Neil Craig probably won't get the job, but if they lose this game, then he's absolutely no chance of getting it. So I think the last month or so, the Demons need to play some free-flowing footy, play with that freedom they played with when Craig first got to the club, first got the coaching job when Neil got sacked, and just play with that freedom and give their fans a bit of hope heading into the 2014 season.
Yeah, I agree with you there. As for Melbourne, this being a must-win game, it's really, even though the two sides are in an identical position, well, almost on the ladder, there's much more at stake for Melbourne than there is GWS. GWS is a developing side; they should be in this position. It's expected that they're in this position. Whereas Melbourne, they've been developing this list for 5 or 6 years, trying to rebuild to get a premiership winning side, and they just can't afford to lose to a team like GWS.
Who are you tipping, mate?
I've actually gone the Giants this week. I was very impressed with them last.
Oh,
I was very impressed with them against the Pies. I know you don't have confidence to tip them, and I don't either, to be honest. But just on their performance last week, and Jeremy Cameron really excited me last week. I'm going to go the Giants by 6 points.
yeah, I'm going the D's. As he said, I just can't bring myself to tip the Giants at the moment. I'm happy to see them win a game this season. If it's going to be a game, it's going to be this game. But I just think they might be on too much of a high from last week. People are probably expecting them to win, and with a young side, when they get a win, that you don't normally expect it. So I think the Demons, they need to win this game. They've essentially got something to pay for in a little thing called pride. So I think the Demons might get up by about 23 points. Our next game is a massive game at the MCG between the Hawks and the Tigers. It's going to be a bumper crowd. The Tiger Army will be out. For Hawthorn, in comes Sean Burgoyne after his 2-game suspension, and the unfortunate one to miss out is Jonathan Simpkin. Brent Guerrero plays his 250th game. He played at St Kilda and Port Adelaide, and now at the Hawks, where he won a premiership.
And for the Tigers, Oren Stevenson, Luke McGuan, and David Asprey come in. Out goes Ricky Pettard with a groin injury, Matthew Arnott with a back, and Ty Vickery with concussion.
It's going to be a ripping game, this one, Nick. I saw the Hawks firsthand last week, and they were scary, scary good. I think last week showed that you don't have to be a quick side if you're effective. If you're able to move the ball very quickly, pace isn't a factor. They were, as I said, scary. Very, very scary. Lance Franklin got himself into good form, as he always does against the Bombers. Thanks, Lance. Roughhead was good, Bruce, and I just want to give a quick mention to all the Cyril Rioli knockers. He is not overrated at all. He only needs 15 touches of the footy to have an influence on the game, and that's what he did last week, and he was absolutely outstanding. Nick, do we give the Tigers any chance in this match?
In a word, no.
No.
Last week I tipped Sydney. I think it was 46 points, and this week I think it might be a little bit more. Hawthorn are just scary good at the moment. Richmond they'll stick with them for a little while, but I think Hawthorn will just blow them away, and they'll get up for the big contest, and they'll make no mistake this week.
Yeah, and I know Richmond fans might say, "Oh, we beat them by 62 points last year," but that was 2012. This is 2013. They're a completely different unit. Jared Ruffhead's playing better footy. Isaac Smith's playing really good footy. Brad Hill's playing really good footy. Luke Hodges back to his best. They've got Brian Lake in that side now as well. They're a completely different unit to what they were last season, and you can make a case the same for the Tigers as well. But honestly, it's Hawthorn's premiership to lose, I feel, and I can't see the Tigers unfortunately getting close to the Hawks. Who are you tipping, Nick?
I'm tipping the Hawks. It's one of those ones that's hard to put a number on it because I think it will be a blowout, unfortunately, for Tigers fans. I'm going to say 52 points in this one.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same area, Nick. I think the Hawks will just be far too good. They'll ramp up their form and get into some premiership winning mode, you could say, but I think the Hawks will win by about 54 points. Our next game is the West Coast Eagles versus the Gold Coast Suns at Patterson Stadium on Saturday afternoon. For the Eagles, in comes Darren Glass, Brad Shepherd and Andrew Embley. Out goes Kyle Morton and Mitch Byrne, who have been omitted, and Chris Maston with an ankle injury.
And for the Suns, David Swallow, Dion Prestia, Rory Thompson and Daniel Gorringe come in. Jared Brennan's been omitted, Tom Nichols comes out with a knee injury, Jacob Gilby has been omitted, and so has Maverick Weller.
Interesting game, this one, Nick. I think the Suns are a sneaky chance in this game. I don't know what to make of the West Coast Eagles at the moment. When their season's over, they normally capitulate. They don't give up much of a fight. So they're 2 games out of the eight, 3 games, sorry, out of the eight, and almost mathematically cannot make it. Um, what are your thoughts on this game, mate? Do you see the Suns challenging the West Coast Eagles?
Yeah, I think I said it last week. It's really hard tipping with these teams when they've sort of accepted that their season's over, and they're just sort of rotating the squad and giving some games to everyone. Gold Coast has been impressive all year. Even though it's over in Perth, anything could happen here.
Absolutely, and especially the running side that the Gold Coast Suns have become. The big wide ground of Patterson Stadium might play into their hands a little bit. You get it in the hands of Trent McKenzie and obviously the little man Gary Ablett, Harley Bennell. Those running types, they can be really damaging. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they play against the Eagles over there. I just want to make a quick note. Nathan Bock, he's named as an emergency, but did travel with the side, so there might be a sneaky late change there. He's been playing as a forward in the reserves and certainly kicked. I'm not sure how many goals he has kicked in the reserves, but he certainly kicked a bag of 9 a couple of weeks ago. So playing him as a forward, and he'd be a good experience for the likes of Charlie Dixon and Sam Day down in the forward line.
Which way's your tip going this week, Josh?
I give the Suns a sneaky chance, as I said, but I can't go past the Eagles over there against the Suns. I'm tipping the Eagles by about 12 points.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think it'll be not quite as close as that. The Gold Coast will give them a run for their money regardless, though. I'm going West Coast by 26 points.
Moving on now to Carlton versus Fremantle. For the Carlton side, there is no change, still no Jared Waite to come into this side. He'll have to wait another week to make his appearance heading in towards a possible September campaign.
And for the Dockers, Hayden Ballantyne is a big in for them, and Cameron Sutcliffe has been omitted.
Another difficult game to tip this week, Nick. It's a lot of 50-50 games this week, and this is certainly another one of them. The Blues, they're playing very good footy at the moment. A number of people gave the Gold Coast Suns a chance last week, and Carlton just ran away with it completely and destroyed them. For Carlton, Lockie Henderson has been a terrific pickup. It's turned out to be. He's come into this side from the Brisbane Lions about 4 or 5 years ago. Tried to make his name as an early forward, and then went into defence. Made his name as a defender, and now he's gone back forward and is playing some really good footy and giving them a target to kick to.
Yeah, it certainly is an interesting game. Like you said, I really have no idea who to tip with this one. Fremantle last week, I think it was a record low inside 50s they won the game with against Adelaide.
33 it was, mate.
33. So that's really emphasising the Ross Lyon shutdown game style there. They come across to Melbourne, and it's really hard to know what they'll do in Melbourne. Like they shocked everyone, certainly shocked me last year when they beat the Cats elimination final in Melbourne. But then they came up against Richmond a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne, and really didn't put up too much of a fight. So it's hard to see what will happen this weekend.
Absolutely, and I think the inclusion of Hayden Ballantyne's a really a big focal point as well. As much as everyone loves to hate him, he's a terrific young footballer, and he pairs up so well with Michael Walters, who's also having a terrific year. Those two work in tandem really well and can be dangerous. I think this game is going to be one with the small forwards. Which team's small forward is going to stand up? Is it going to be the Eddie Betts, Jeff Garlett's, Chris Yarans, or is it going to be the Hayden Ballantyne's, Michael Walters? Or you can probably throw Chris Main in there as well, who's a mid-sized forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game pans out. Is Carlton going to be able to break through Fremantle's defensive unit? Is Fremantle going to be able to contain the likes of Betts, Yaron and Garlett going forward?
It's an absolutely vital game for both teams as well. Carlton are sitting in ninth position, and Fremantle, I think they're fifth at the moment. So both teams really need this vital win against almost an equal opposition, considering where it's being played. To get that spot up in the ladder.
Who are you tipping, mate?
I've gone the Blues. I'm not too confident on this tip either. Being Fremantle, who are a strong side, but Carlton, 11 points this week.
Yeah, I've gone for the Blues as well, which is very rare for myself. I don't like to see them win, but that's just me being an Essendon supporter. But I tip with my head. And I've picked the Blues. I just think probably Pavlich and McFarlane are the two vital clogs in this side, and those two missing again this week through injury and suspension. I just think the Blues might be able to snatch a win here and win by about 9 points. Our next game on Saturday night is the Brisbane Lions versus the Saints up at the Gabba for the Brisbane Lions. I'm sorry, in comes Piers Hanley just after that 1 week with that wrist injury. Jesse O'Brien and Ryan Harwood. Out goes Ash McGrath, who's been omitted, as well as Jack Crisps and Brent Maloney, who's gone out with soreness. Brent Staker finally reaches his 150th game after a few injuries out, a few years out with injury.
And for the Saints, Sam Donnell and Dylan Robertson come in, and out goes James Group with a knee injury and Tom Heaphy, who's been omitted.
It's another interesting game that could go either way, Nick. We'll keep saying it. We'll keep sounding like a broken record. But the Saints, they were disappointing last week against your boys, weren't they?
They were horrendous. It's hard to tell if Geelong were incredible or if St Kilda were just not good enough, but they certainly didn't put up much of a fight.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, after quarter time, the Saints only managed to muster up 11 points, which just really isn't good enough. And I think Geelong kicked. What was your final score last week? 137. I think it was.
136 to 30 to 35, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
101 points was the final margin. So
I think it was 137. So he kicked 112 points to 11. So that just that's just not good enough from the Saints. And they had their injury worries with James Gould and Nick Rewald, who went off. Been really impressed with Tom Lee. He's kicked 10 goals in the last 4 games and given them a real different aspect down forward instead of always kicking to Nick Rewald.
yeah, and Brisbane will be really disappointed after last week's loss to Port Adelaide. I watched the game and it was certainly exciting last quarter, and Daniel Merritt was just very unlucky to did he play on, did he not? But unfortunately, Chad Wingard tackled him and kicked the goal there. So season over for Brisbane, but they're on the improve.
Who are you tipping, mate?
I'm going the Lions. St Kilda just weren't good enough last week, and Brisbane were very competitive in Adelaide. So Brisbane by 34 points.
Gee, not far off my margin there, mate. I've tipped the Brisbane Lions by about 33 points. Just think they'll be too strong at the Gabba. They've played, I know it's their home ground, but they've played the Gabba pretty well this season and have beaten Geelong up there and taken it up to a few other contenders up there as well. So I think the Lions will do it by about 33 points. Moving on to the Sunday games now, it's the Western Bulldogs versus the Sydney Swans at Etihad Stadium. In for the Western Bulldogs is Jake Stringer, Christian Howard, Tom Campbell, Mark Austin and Daniel Cross. Out goes skipper Matthew Boyd with a calf again and Liam Jones with an ankle.
And for the Sydney Swans, in comes Shane Briggs for his first game, Reece Shaw and Mitch Morton. And Luke Parker plays his 50th game, so congratulations to him.
Luke Parker is an absolute gun. I love him. I wish he was at Essendon. He could have been, but congratulations to him. He's a star up at the Swans. Bulldogs were very good against the West Coast Eagles last week, Nick. They controlled most of the game. Luke Dalhouse had a terrific game. He picked up 29 disposals and 4 goals. It was probably Rob Murphy's best game for the year as well. Where do you see this game heading?
Well, likewise, the Swans were very good last week against Richmond. They were challenged early and they didn't let their supporters down. The Bulldogs, like you said, they were very good last week at Etihad against West Coast. I flirted with tipping them, but I didn't in the end, and they proved me wrong in the end. So, but I think Sydney will get the job done quite comfortably this week.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think Jesse White and Kurt Tippett are certainly going to cause some headaches for the Bulldogs' defence. On the team sheet, it's got Jordan Roughhead down at full forward, but I don't think that'll happen. I think Roughhead will probably have to play in defence on Kurt Tippett, and Morris will go to Jesse White. White was very good last week against the Tigers, kicking 4 goals. He's a terrific young talent, is Jesse White, and he's struggled to find that consistency. But hopefully that was a breakout game for him last week, and he can cement his spot in the Sydney Swans lineup.
Which way's your tip going?
I can't go past the Swans, unfortunately, mate. They'll just be far too strong. The Doggies have been very good the last month or so, but the Swans are just a class above the rest. And Sydney by about 43 points for me. What about yourself, mate?
Yeah, Sydney by 50 points. Just too good, even in Etihad, and they'll stamp themselves as a real premiership contender.
Our next game is the Adelaide Crows versus Port Adelaide. It's the massive showdown. There's a bit of rivalry over there between players, clubs, and supporters. In for Adelaide comes Lewis Johnston, Mitchell Grigg, Patrick Dangerfield is back after that shoulder injury, Sam Kerridge, Jared Petrenko, and Ben Rutten. Out goes Richard Tambling, who's been omitted, and two massive outs in Josh Jenkins with an ankle. We wish him all the best. He had surgery during the week. He's going to miss the rest of the year. And Rory Sloane, who has a torn retina in his eye. So, Nick, you've got the Port Adelaide ins.
And for Port Adelaide, in comes Nathan Blee, Campbell Heath, and Cameron Hitchcock.
Yeah, they this always throws up a different situation every time they play each other. Probably at the start of the year, you would have said Adelaide would have won both during the year, but the Crows fell to Port Adelaide early in the year, and I'm leaning the same way again. I think the outs for Adelaide just might be too much to handle.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Port Adelaide last week, and likewise, I was a bit disappointed with Adelaide's performance. Adelaide, after toppling the Cats at home, they went over to the Pattersons and threw up a very disappointing performance against Fremantle. Be interesting to see how they back up this week against their arch rivals.
Absolutely, and I think with Jerker Jenkins going down, Lewis Johnson coming in, he's only played the 3 career games, and it's a massive task for him to come in and basically be the number one forward. Tom Lynch he's kicked 29 goals for the year. He leads the Adelaide goal kicking for the year. He's going to have a big game if the Crows are to win this game. For Port Adelaide, I really liked their game against the Brisbane Lions last week. I thought they were challenged by Brisbane, and they kept fighting them away to maintain their spot in the 8.
Yeah, I say it a lot this time of the season, but it really is a must-win game for Port Adelaide. Hanging on by a thread in 8th position, and Carlton have a massive chance to take that spot this week if they can topple Fremantle in Melbourne. So Port Adelaide really need to topple their arch rivals this weekend.
Who are you tipping, mate?
Going the Port Adelaide power. I think there's just too much at stake for Port Adelaide, and Adelaide's season is over. I doubt they'll have the same hunger that Port Adelaide will to win this game. So Port Adelaide by 18 points.
Yeah, I'm on the same trait, mate. I think Port Adelaide will just be too strong. The outs for Adelaide are just too big, and Port Adelaide need to win to keep their finals hopes alive. And if they manage to get to the finals, I think Ken Hinkley is a well-deserved Coach of the Year to get them from where they were last season to losing to the GWS by 6 goals to potential finals contenders. So I think Port Adelaide by about 22 points.
And the final game of round 19 is Collingwood up against the Essendon Bombers. In for the Pies comes Quinton Lynch, Luke Ball and Paul Seedsman.
And for the Mighty Bombers, in comes Nick O'Brien, Scott Gumbleton, Dustin Fletcher, Cole Hardingham, and the skipper is back, Joe Watson. I'm not sure if he'll play though, but we'll get into that in a second. Joe Danaher has been omitted, and Michael Hurley goes out with an ankle injury.
Are you confident this week, Josh?
I am actually, mate. I think, especially after what's gone on this week with the Dean Robinson interview and everything that's gone on, if this doesn't galvanise the team and want to play for James Hird, their coach, then nothing will. They took to Twitter on Wednesday night, showing their support for their coach, and I think they'll just come out and want to make a statement and say we're here to play footy. We'll ignore everything that happens off field, and we'll play our footy and show that we're a real top 4 contender. Obviously, the Pies are a tough contest no matter how good they're playing. They're a type of side that can come out and put on a really A-grade performance, or they're a team that can come out and put a really D-grade performance in. So it's hard to know what to expect from both teams heading into this game.
Yeah, I spoke about it. I touched on it earlier a little bit. I really wouldn't be surprised if Collingwood, whether it's this week, next week, or round 1 of the finals, if they really came out with a bang and proved to be, that 4th or 5th team that's in contention for the premiership this year. Even from outside the top 4, I wouldn't be surprised if Collingwood almost went all the way. And I'm actually backing the Pies this week. I'm not sure what it is, but I think this is the week that Collingwood can really step up, and they've sort of putted along all season, and I think this week they can really take it up to the Bombers.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, mate, and I've certainly had that little bit of doubt that Collingwood can come out and get on top of us, but I just think Scott Gumbleton coming back in, I thought it was the wrong decision to probably play Joe Danaher ahead of Gumbleton last week, and I went and watched the reserves as I work with the VFL side at Essendon, and Gumby just took the game apart. He kicked 5 goals, 4 in the first half, and took 10 contested marks. So he certainly made a point on Saturday afternoon at Windy Hill, and I said earlier on my Twitter last night that if he wasn't picked for this game, then he probably wouldn't play another game in an Essendon jumper. But I think the Bombers can win. I hope the Bombers win, to be honest. I'd really like to see the Bombers bounce back after they were probably exposed last week against the Hawks effectively. They allowed the Hawks too much room to use the ball, and when you do that, that really kills you. Essendon have not lost at the MCG this year and have been quite convincing in their wins, except for probably Carlton, where they won by 5 points, which was gold. But we'll move on. But I'll be tipping the Bombers by 10 points.
Yeah, as I said, I'm backing the Pies, but Essendon could very easily win this game, as the Pies could very easily win this game. I'm going to go Collingwood by 25 points. Actually, I really have a feeling that they'll just come out this week and announce themselves as they're not going to be a pushover anymore.
And that wraps up another episode of Beyond the Boundary. Nick, thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem at all.
We'll see you next week, and as we said at the top of the show, we'll have Paige Cardona on next week. Unfortunately, again, she couldn't join us this week, but we'll have her on, and she's going to answer our questions on the draft coming up this year. We're going to ask her about James Age, Matthew Scharenberger, and Dale Garlett, who missed out last year through some off-field incidents. We'll also ask her about the Pies, so hopefully you can join us next week on what is going to be a massive show. I hope your team wins this week, except if you're a Collingwood supporter. It's going to be a massive week of footy, so I hope you can join us next week. Nick, you got a few things?
Yeah, remember to send in your tweets, the topics you want us to discuss next week, or message us on Facebook either way. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube so you never miss a thing.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter as well, at JRickard1991 and at Geisen as well. Go the Bombers. I hope we have a big win on Sunday night.
Go Cats.